So today I'm excited to welcome Mary Ellen, a productivity expert who has helped professionals across industries transform their workday from chaos to calm. Mary Ellen specializes in creating sustainable productivity systems that work with your natural rhythms rather than against them. Her approaches have helped countless professionals reclaim their time and mental space while achieving more than they thought possible. Mary Ellen, thanks for being on.
Thanks for having me, Ramesh.
Before we dive into all the wonderful things that come along productivity, what drew you to focus on helping professionals master their workday routines?
I would say it's kind of a combination of factors all coming together at the same time. It would I've always, been looking for the most efficient way to do things. I studied industrial engineering in college, which is how, it goes back to the Industrial Revolution and how to make factories more efficient. But modern day, it's how to make, software more efficient, how to make testing more efficient, how to do hospital emergency room routing more efficiently.
Oh, cool.
So it's kind of been in my blood since then. And it kind of just came to a head after I returned to work from my second maternity leave. I was just, either working at night to make up for things I couldn't find time to do during the day. And I really realized that I needed to be more strict about who I gave my time to, what projects I was splitting it between. And that was kind of the driver to really dig my heels in and, apply it to my life and not so much professional setting or professional use cases and more my own personal time management.
Mhm. So, I mean, I like the idea of saying like really being mindful of what projects you're taking on. The idea of like being able to say no to things. If you can you explain the relationship between having clarity and being more productive?
Yeah, so I think clarity is tied really closely to prioritization, right? So you in there kind of chicken or the egg, right? Which one comes first? Kind of depends on the scenario and the day. So if you're clear on what your year-long goal is, if you have a number to hit, or if you have X number of cases or clients that you want to add on this year, then you can kind of take this universal criteria and look at every problem that comes across your desk at work and say, is this going to be a valuable new client? Yes or no? Is it worth adding on to my week? Yes. And that having those established criteria ahead of time helps you be able to just look back at them so you're not changing it in your mind a couple weeks later. So you can at least say if you're going to change, instead of adding 50 clients this year, our goal is to add 40, but we want to sponsor a show or some type of professional organization, then write down that change to your goal so that when are re-clarifying your ideas, you can still have something written that you're referencing back to and making sure you're aligned with.
And I think that at least for me, that's been one of the challenges, right? Because um, especially in legal practice where things are changing fairly very quickly, and especially if you don't really have a lot of staff, it's really easy to get a whole bunch of work and private tasks or whatnot. And I mean, it's easy to talk about I want to have X amount of clients or whatnot, but from I think one of the things that a lot of lawyers struggle with is just saying I have X amount of things to do this week. How am I going to do things that is really hard just to find the energy to get them all done? Um, is there a link between like from a I know you've talked more of a longer term piece in terms of um, goals.
Year,
But it's
right?
like yeah, but in terms of like a daily or a weekly type of thing, what are some things that that we can be doing?
Yeah, so I would say the easiest and first thing you should be doing is timing yourself, which I'm sure is super easy for lawyers to do because you've already gotten used to billing. So I'm sure at a very, innate level at some point, you know exactly how long this will take, which is something at a great advantage that lawyers have that a lot of other careers don't. They don't know how long it'll take to do this or if that'll happen. So I think knowing the time that it takes you to do something is important. And then knowing your energy. So I myself, I'm in sales. So I know if I do a 2-hour presentation in front of, 30 or 40 people, that is my whole energy for the day. I mean, I put everything into it. If it's at 11 a.m. and it ends at 2, the rest of my day, I mean, I just can't be counted to do anything very high demand. So knowing that and seeing like if Wednesday from 11 to 2, I have a huge presentation, then as the emails start coming in Monday with little requests, like I just immediately respond, "Yep, I'll look at it Thursday morning. I'll look at it Friday morning." Like, it's all just getting put to the back burner because I know what this priority is, and I know it's gonna take a lot of my energy, and I can't be sitting there responding to little emails about something that's not about that presentation that day. So, it's part of, what's your big priority that's gonna take the most energy, and then after that presentation is done or a court date is done or something, a large piece of a legal project has been passed, then the next 2 hours of my Wednesday or Thursday when I have a couple of hours left in the office, but I'm really low on energy, I'm then going through all those emails and just giving them a date of when I'll get back to them, or at least putting time on my calendar to look at it if it's something really involved.
I On the idea of energy, I mean, there's so much there that I've really been I really can empathize with for the last like couple of weeks because like for me, obviously, for lawyers anyway, it's either you go to court or you in a tough negotiation or just another lawyer just really being silly and aggressive for needlessly to you. And oh my
Yeah.
goodness, especially after court hearing, it just takes all of your energy away. You can't do anything
Yeah,
more, and like your brain, you're fried.
that's what I
Um,
was exactly kinda thinking of in the example. So I was just I mean, if you have a court I mean, if and the most I mean, I know it's not up to you, you're up to the court system, but it if there is a way that, like, court is always Tuesday or court is always Thursday, like, if you can make it the same day every week or at least front half of the week or back half of the week,
yeah.
then you can really structure the energy.
And I think, but I think I mean, you're right. I mean, this idea of saying, okay, like I am only going to go to court on Tuesdays and Wednesdays, so I'm only going to book court attendances on those 2 days and not any other days. I mean, uh,
I don't know
I
if
mean,
that's
this
ridiculous. I'm sorry. I'm not a
no, no,
lawyer,
no.
so
It's actually not. Like it's a complete. I think the challenges, especially here, where I'm at in Toronto, the there's so much of backlog. So it's like the minute you get an early date, like for the client's
Yeah, you
interest,
just
you
take
want
it.
to make sure
Of
you get the
course.
date, right?
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I just but more to your point, it's just I think what I struggle with a lot is you have your let's say your court dates or whatnot, but then after you finish court, it's like there are like 10 to 15 emails that need to be addressed. And I mean, to your point about like, oh, estimating how long it takes, I think lawyers would like to think that they're good at time tracking. I
Mhm.
think most lawyers are really terrible at it. And I will put myself in that latter category. Because I would like to think I spent, oh, maybe like 6 or 7 minutes, but it's so funny when I start tracking exactly how much time I spend on emails, like, oh my goodness, I spend like an hour or two a day just on emails,
Yeah, I mean,
which is kind of
is that a
unreal.
really long is that a really long response, or is that you, like, firing off a ton of responses to people?
It's a mixture, right? I mean, if you're in sort of a crisis position, which happens sometimes, it'll be like really lengthy emails. You need to make sure that that you've got all the documents attended. You've got to make sure that it's detailed or whatnot. But oftentimes, at least, and especially because you're trying to um, shift between sort of like identities from like lawyer to business owner, and then even to like being husband, family member, like trying, like I find that shift really, really hard, right? Um,
Yes, I think we'll address the shift part at the very end, or at least
sure.
later in our
Yeah,
conversation.
yeah, that'd be great.
But
Yeah, no, but
when it
yeah.
Yeah, I feel that way about emails too. So mine aren't I'm not attaching as many things, but especially I work in software, so it's a ton of screenshots. It's this part happened, then this part happened, or it's videos too that you need to take and put into the email to show
Mhm,
where something's breaking. So, I mean, I can tell though when I get an email if it's gonna require that length of response, and I'm sure you can too. So what
mhm,
I
yeah,
do in the triage of the email is, okay, I have 3 of these that are just quick hits. Those all go into a respond folder. And then if I have one that's a long response, I'm gonna put it on my to-do list for today and, like, block out 30 minutes to 45 minutes or even an hour on the calendar to respond to it because it takes that much time if it's a long one
mhm.
with a lot of recordings and steps and notes and everything you need to send back to somebody.
And I think that's where, and I think that's again because we are living in this time where nobody's ever taught us how to manage our
Yeah.
emails properly. right?
Definitely, definitely graduated college before email, like, anybody cared about email.
And
Nothing
it's funny,
was
like
really
I've been,
happening. Yeah.
like I feel that, you know how they say that, oh, you should have like financial budgeting in like high school or whatever it is, right? I'm
Yeah.
at a place right now where you should be doing this with email, like just so that just to, because that, oh, like I honestly feel when it comes to email, I just get so overwhelmed with, and especially because you're trying to do well by the client, trying to do well by yourself, just trying to manage that stuff can, yeah, it's just hard to find. At least for me, it's really hard to do. Um,
Yeah, so
and
the way I handle it is, I mean, if you have I'm not again, not a lawyer, but if you have, like you said, a crisis email, are those coming from client? Are those come from the court system? Are they coming from another
it's
lawyer?
it's, you know what, like I don't know about. I mean, this goes into much a little bit broader, but I mean, you would think that in like for most emails, like our court system and same thing with the states, it's all adversarial, right? And so the I think, unfortunately, especially after the pandemic, um, a lot of lawyers take out their stress on other lawyers. And so
Mhm.
what? So these emails, so and not all of them, but a lot of them are just emotionally intensive and exhausting. It's like they bring so much of drama in when no drama needs to exist,
Mhm.
right? And I think that's what, and again, I think that's, at least for me, it just takes away um, my energy, right? I have a certain amount of energy in the day. I know when I'm productive, no, I'm not, and I know we've talked. I know we've talked about emails, but at least for me, like managing that energy in these sort of like crisis moments does a number on my productivity. You know,
Yeah.
um, I,
So the way I
and can
yeah.
it, if you don't mind, can you actually talk a little bit about that, that role that energy management plays into productivity? But I do want to get back to emails, but I am curious about your thoughts on that.
Yeah. I mean, it's you know yourself, right? I mean, I wake up groggy like most people, but I have my best amount of productivity and focus energy in the morning. I personally, have always thought of it a lot like willpower. It's like if you're on a diet and you're not trying to eat sweets, you're fine all day, but then by dinner time, your willpower is just it's eroding as time goes on. And same focus is really the same way. You start out with you start out with grogginess, you get past that about 90 minutes after you wake up, and then after that it's just kind of slowly slipping as the day goes on. So I as much as I can, I'm an individual contributor at a large corporation. So as much as I can, if it's a meeting I have the option of setting the time, I set it for like 3 o'clock or later my time. Because if it's something where I need to work on it all day, that's a great time for me. And if it's something where we're just checking in or we're looking at progress, it doesn't need to be taking my morning focus to do that. And as an individual practice owner, hopefully you have a lot of control over when you set meetings with people. And then the biggest thing I wanted to remind you of outside of email and just focus in general is if it's an emergency, like truly an emergency, someone will call you. Um,
They actually
so, I
don't.
mean, yeah.
That's what's crazy. That's I
Oh,
think
okay.
what's the crazy. That's actually what's the craziest part, is because um, it's kind of like Gen Z and texting. Like it's this
Okay.
idea. It's so super weird because
Mhm.
there's this idea. Like I am a really big fan of just calling, and speaking to people, but people have a tendency to say no, put it in writing, put it in writing, and I'm saying, but writing is the worst way to do things, because especially if you look to problem solve, right? And I'm thinking of a case in point right now where um, a conversation over a phone call would have been so much easier
Yeah,
to say, hey, guess
5 minutes.
what? You might have. There's this thing missing. It was this intentional, and then oh yeah, crap. Sorry. I like I didn't realize. Let's clarify it. And instead of putting an email, I'll say, give me a call. They put an email and they'll like make all these crazy threats. It's the most
Mm.
ridiculous thing. And I don't understand. And I actually, and again, there's just my frustration with the legal profession and how it's structured. And then the judiciary. because they're overworked, they're over, they don't see all of that. We as lawyers live with our cases, right? And the judges only see small snippets of it when they see it. But I'm sorry, I realize I'm now just going on a diatribe right now. But I think that for me, this idea of blocking time and this idea of, you know what, so for me, for example, I've now gone into the habit of Fridays are my time when I focus on my firm management and business management, or at least I'm trying to. So at
Mhm.
least, so then I try to keep client meetings. So we usually have a staff meeting on the Monday. So it'll be court was usually Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and then meetings will be scheduled in the afternoon. So like that's kind of sort of where I try to build around my productivity pieces. But again, like it's hard. Like at least for me, that's still a journey that I'm on. You know, I'm trying to do that. Um,
Yeah, I think you should it helps too to do that idea have you heard of the ideal calendar exercise where you write down that, for the week, this is how ideally it would all go, and then make those recurring appointments and move them around each week as you
yeah,
have
no,
to.
absolutely. So let's get back into email.
Yeah.
So you talked about the folders, which is a great idea. Um, what are some other tips? I mean, so you have your respond folder and I guess a to do later folder. Is that correct?
Yeah, so it actually all comes from this great book I read recently called Uptime by Laura Mae Martin. And
Okay.
she's a productivity expert at Google, and she had one of the best metaphors for email, and I think you'll relate to it. She said checking your email like 13 times a day is like if you did your laundry and you look at the dryer and you open the door and okay, it's dry. Take out like one thing, you make sure it's dry, you put it back in, you close the door. And then like
Yep.
30 minutes later, you walk by again, you open it, you look, okay, I'll put that away this afternoon. And then you close the door again. That's kind of what she's relating it to glancing at your inbox. Um, so if you're just constantly opening it and looking at it and seeing that new emails came in, that's exactly what you're doing. So if you can set to the best of your ability dedicated time. So for me, I am in sales, so it's not like there's a hair on fire customer issue usually because they're not actually customers yet. So it's not like something's broken usually. So I
Yeah.
don't have that critical need to always have my email on. But I check it in the morning, usually around 10 a.m., and then after lunch, and then at the end of the day. And I've written the rules in Outlook to like filter so that anything that's an industry publication that I need to read, I just have a separate folder that those automatically go into. And I read those on, like you said, like Friday afternoon when you're kind of low energy, but you want to keep working, you have the time, but you don't need to be, doing something that requires intense focus. So you don't need to read those every morning when they come in. And then outside of that, I archive things because email search functionality is so great today. If it's not deleted and you just archive it, you can just type in any 3 words that your mind is thinking of regarding that email, and it'll come up. There's no need to sit there and file your emails into individual folders or tag them with anything with how good technology is today, you don't need to worry about that. And then, like I said, if it's an email that you can tell it's gonna be a longer response, I would say more than 5 minutes of your time, I would put it on the calendar. And it gets hard, you don't wanna time block your day into, like, infinitely into little things because then it's just you fall off that track and it's defeating. I more so would say, "Here's this one's gonna take a while, I'll set it aside, so is this one, I'll block off 90 minutes to answer all these emails." Kind of just go in a formula, but I like to time block, I don't like to get really, really cute with it and really detailed.
Yeah.
I
Um,
like you, I block time for this business on the weekends, and I just have Saturday, like 2 hours admin, and in the recurring appointment, I just list the different tasks I could be doing, and then Sunday, I have time for whatever the project is that I'm focusing on and the next couple tasks there.
um, and so I think one of the other pieces that I don't know where I found out about the idea, but it's the idea of stopping all notifications and stopping the
Yeah, I
ping,
personally
stopping.
do that.
Uh, uh, well,
Yeah.
well, uh, it was one thing where and again, as a lawyer, you think that every email is so important, so needs to be responded right away. But it's honestly like Pavlov's instinct or whatever it's called, right? Like it's
Right.
that day you
React.
think, yeah, and you just react to it. And so I now I'm trying, and I don't know how successful, but I tried to all my notifications on my phone. I just don't want any app to give me any notifications, just so that because otherwise I have a thing to. There's a book. It's called Near EL. I think it's called Addicted or something,
Yeah, I've read
or
that
Hooked.
one, yeah.
Oh yeah, Hooked.
Yeah.
Near EL, and it
Yeah.
talks about how to get people hooked on stuff. And I think he wrote a second one, talk about undistractable or indistractable, and
Yeah.
it's about how not to be distracted. The exact opposite.
I think on the phones, it's pretty easy. You just put it in work mode and you can, filter which numbers you wanna let through. And like I said, if it's an emergency in your personal life, someone would call. So still let
Yeah.
those people calling come through. And then I just personally I close Outlook. If I'm not responding quick enough, like sometimes that happens, people then start sending IMs. And then I'm like, all right, I'll go take a look. Just
Yep.
just
There
wait a
you
minute.
go.
They might have emailed me in the 2 hours it's closed. But I personally don't have anything pop up on the screen. I do have a sound if it's my boss's boss, anyone who I really need to reply to or at least look at right away. And that really helps because having something pop up is really just always distracting. No matter how focused you are, you can't resist it. So,
Oh my goodness, yeah. Uh, so let's move on to prioritizing delegation. And I've become, again, this is a topic which I've recently becoming obsessed with because early this year I just realized that I can't do everything on my own. Um, and so the idea of finding out how to effectively delegate to other people, I think and I think I speak about the book all the time, the Who Not How, and it's all about trying to figure out who the right people to delegate. I mean, from your perspective, what role does planning play in prioritization and delegation?
yeah, so I pretty much, I'm an individual contributor at work, so I can't really delegate to too many people. But in my home life, I can. And that's not just, I hear that, I'm like, "All right, here, somebody's gonna tell me to get my groceries delivered." Like, we know that. I think it's a bigger picture that people struggle with when it comes to the time that's committed to train someone to do something. So, you might say in your life, like, there's the easy ones of delegating. You could hire someone to clean your house, hire someone to pick up your groceries. But if it's something where someone in your house needs to learn how to do this also, then it's gonna take time. So, um, I'm familiar, like, sometimes we have medical issues in our family, and if we need to train someone on how to set up an at-home machine, how to clean it, how to change out different packets and things like that,
Yeah.
um, it's worth you taking the time and setting it aside on your calendar to make it as easy as possible for that person to learn. So if the issue is they're always forgetting this step, like, you have to think about what can I make for this person? Is there for me, it was making a leave behind manual. Here's a paper with, photos of exactly how it all gets set up. Here's how often you need to change it. Here's a table with like all the different types of medicine based on XYZ that day. And you just have to work with someone over and over. And you just have to realize that it's going to take some time and you can't I think pardon me, but, like, the biggest reaction most people have is, "Fuck it, I'll do it myself. This is taking
No,
too
no,
long."
no, 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 no,
Uh,
no, don't
yeah.
absolutely, and absolutely, no, no,
Yeah.
no,
Yeah, yeah.
absolutely, absolutely,
Um,
like, absolutely,
so that's what most people think, and I still do it myself, and I catch but once you're aware and you catch yourself saying I say it to myself under my breath, like, "Fuck this, I can do it myself faster."
all the time.
But you have to realize that in the long run, you are enabling someone else to do something that you need help with that's gonna make your life easier, and it's just, redundancy of having 2 different people who know how to do it. It's gonna make everything better.
And yeah, I love the analogy because far too often we think of delegation and we think of delegation solely as in the work experience, but more and more, at least from my own life, just trying to understand, like, look, like, what are things going to be there? So, by way of example, um, my wife and I, we have very different organizational styles, and so she has a much more, um, to put it more simply, she likes everything stupidly organized, like really, 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 like everything is proper place. And so, obviously, when I come in, I make everything chaos. And so, for her, it's really important for me. So, when she delegating to me, she basically, when if I want to keep a marriage well and good, it's me that training component saying, like, look, like, this is my standards, this is how I want to keep it. And sometimes, and it's a really, what you said to me just really triggered this idea of, if you want to run a business and if you want to do this, you might have a set of expectations that you're bringing in to the task. Somebody new coming in isn't going to know how to do that immediately effectively. So you have to have a little more patience. And yes, you do have to train them, and you need to have the training tools and
And the
um,
time set aside to
the
train them.
time, right?
Yeah,
And I think at least from my experience of, like, hiring people and working with people, that I am so much more focused now on building processes and workflows that are sort of like a checklist type of format, because then at least people, it's not me telling them what to do, is that they have a resource that they can consult and go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? And
yeah,
I
and
think,
everyone, I mean, as a worker, you feel better. You can go, okay, I did everything on my checklist today, and you know,
yeah, it's
maybe you
I
have a
think, and
standard of these messages need to go out to people 2 days before the court date. Like, and
right.
I can
Absolutely,
help
and
them
that's actually, yeah, and that
with
actually
that.
exists. Like, you have to
Yeah.
email confirmation from 5 days before. So, in our Monday meetings, we would say, like, look, what are the court dates that are coming up in the week? What needs to be sent out, and blah blah. Um, but yeah, I mean, it's but what I loved about your answer is that you're actually reminding me that delegation is not only important in the work component, but also at home, which is, yeah, cool. Speaking of routines, do you have any thoughts about? And we talked again about energy management at the start of this, but the sort of decision fatigue and the routines. Is there a relationship between those components of the routines and decision fatigue?
Definitely. So I have some routines that I follow, and they're not exactly related to work because, like I said, I'm in a sales job. So the sales cycle, it falls where it may. Like, just because I had a presentation this week on Wednesday doesn't mean the next one will be on Wednesday. Uh, so the only routines I really set around on work are, 4 days out, I make sure this is ready. Like you're saying, 3 days out, we confirm. 2 days out. But in terms of my home life, I've set up a lot of routines that make everything else just, I don't have to think about it. So I have 2 young kids, they generate a lot of laundry, and they'll come home from daycare and the daycare clothes because they ruin their own clothes, and I'm just like, "Okay, thank you, our laundry day is Tuesday. We'll get these back Wednesday." Like, they're fine with it, I'm fine with it. We don't need to do laundry every night because they brought home something, that we feel we need to return. So it's something like that. So I personally, I mean, it's kind of household things. So, like, we always grocery shop on the weekend. My husband likes to go in person, so he does that. And then I always do a midweek produce, whatever, restock. But I don't care, and I just like to do it online. So I just have a reorder every Wednesday of like bread, milk, eggs, kind of all the things
Yeah,
that
yeah, yeah.
we run out of. So yeah, making that like seamless. It's a routine. It's pretty much set. And then like laundry is the same day every week. It's gonna be. I can't even do all the laundry in one day, so I just wash and dry half of it one day, wash and dry the other half the next day, and then um, I have Roombas. They're all set to go every Monday and Thursday, so they clean up after the weekend. They clean up
Hmm.
midweek. Yeah, so it's kind of just setting up systems like that. I like to plan every single Friday. I think that's kind of the most useful one. Is I used to wait till Sunday to plan, and then I'd be exhausted, and it wouldn't happen, and I'd be doing it Monday morning, and I would be really amped up on coffee trying to plan the week and just feel behind already. So by doing it, sitting down to look at my calendar, plan out the week on Friday afternoons, it's really been a game changer. And I got that from Laura Vanderkam's book, Tranquility by Tuesday. I think there's 9 different tips that she writes a
Yeah,
chapter on each one. One of them was to plan your week before you're in it. So that's definitely an important one.
and that I mean that's a tip for professionals. At least for us, or like for our household, we have a big thing of like delegating cleaning to having someone come in is a really big thing for us. So we got someone who comes in a couple of days a week, um, and we typically do again two small kids as well, and
Yeah.
and again they're voracious eaters, and so rather than having to cook every single night, what we do is we're really big on meal prepping right now. So we would plan at the start of the week or before the start of the week, what are we going to eat for the rest of the week, and then like do all of the prep stuff around that on the Sunday. Um, but yeah, I mean, like it's and and why I'm mentioning that is because it is one less decision to make during the week because everything is already done, and so because yeah, otherwise, just for me right now, I want to make as few decisions as possible. I think there's this idea of like focusing on your zone of genius and everything else delegate out. And so that's kind of like my mantra for 2025. Focus on everything that I'm really,
Yeah.
really good at.
And I love the idea of minimalism, but sometimes it's just easier to go the opposite way. So, like, if we're doing our laundry every Tuesday, we just bought more kitchen towels because our kids make messes. So we just use those, you know? It's just buy more of what makes that routine easier.
Yeah. Because at the end of the day, so like you said before, it's about your energy and you know you better than else. Uh,
Yeah.
let's move on to some lightning round questions. So we've talked a lot about
Okay.
books. Uh, uh, any book that has changed your approach to productivity?
I would say I really liked The Lazy Genius. It's by Kendra Adachi. It didn't really, like, change my approach to productivity, but it really reignited it. I read it, and she talks a lot about batching, which is pretty much the foundation of industrial engineering is, you know, this person's gonna specialize in making this part, this person's gonna specialize in this part. Um, so that's ju it kinda just made the 2 click for me in a way it hadn't in a long time. And then Laura Vanderkam's book, Tranquility by Tuesday is one of my favorites because it has a lot of applications that are both for work and for personal time.
Cool. Uh, biggest productivity myth.
Mm, there are a lot of myths. I would say it's I don't know if a myth is the right one, but I would say don't use the Notes app unless you really have to on your phone. Just don't pick your phone up.
Ooh, that's
Just write it on paper.
okay. So then,
Write it on paper, yeah.
uh,
Just keep your
so
phone out of
so
the room.
then,
That's the biggest one I can say
so
is the best tip
so then
ever.
let's talk about the converse. What's your go-to productivity tool?
You know, I use Trello, and I still use Notes if I'm on a walk, I'll put something
Yeah.
in there. But when you're sitting at your desk and you're working, I would just take a piece of paper and flip it over and write your non-work related note to yourself. I let all the papers pile up over the weekend or over the workday, and then I just go through them and put the thought in the right spot. So if it's, "Oh, I should text this person," I'll put it on my list for tomorrow. If it's, "We're out of
Oh,
this,"
that's
I'll put it
brilliant.
on that shopping list. But just don't pick up the phone. Please just leave it in another
Okay.
room. Don't pick it up to put something in your cart. That's what I was talking about today on or this week on, the Substack newsletter, like, just don't. It doesn't it's gonna derail you for at least 10 minutes, and it's just not worth it.
Uh, that's a really good segue. Can you tell us a little bit more about your Substack newsletter?
Yeah, so I have one, it's called Tired Mom, and I link to it, it's you can search Tired Mom Substack, or you can go to maryllenknauff.com, which is probably linked here, and we
Yep.
have a link, it's a free newsletter. Every Thursday morning, we send out just an idea and how you can apply it in your work life and your home life. So it's aimed at working parents particularly. So the one this week was about letting the list build up. So that's kind of multifaceted of letting the lists on paper on your desks build up across the day, and then letting the shopping list build up and not being more environmentally friendly. You don't need to order every one thing off Amazon as you think of it. You can let the list build up and wait till wait a couple days, and it
That's
won't
a
make
really
that big of a
that's a
difference.
really great idea. I've never thought about that way, but actually build the list up and then have one day to get everything. That's a really good idea, just
Yeah.
actually. Um, thank you so much. This was fantastic, and
Yeah.
I know
Thanks
it's a
for
little
having me
wide.
on that.
It was really wide ranging, but the from whether it be our thoughts on how to manage our calendars or manage your whole life, I think that the practical strategies on even like managing the email boxes and having the different folders. Uh, I think you've really given a lot of practical tips for people to take away immediately and to move forward. So thank you so much for this great conversation.
Thanks for having me. I really enjoyed it.
Okay, well, we'll talk soon. Cheers.
Bye.